So, we're back with our little tier list. The previous ones showed satisfactory results in my opinion, so today we'll finish ranking Germany's ground vehicles with rank 5. I will let tier 6 to 8 to players who know more about all the modern stuff, and I think rank 5 is a good stopping point since it works well as a transition rank between early game mechanics and more advanced ones. Small reminder on how I classify the vehicles in the tier list since it's been a while, but I focus on parameters like their stats, the stock and aced experience, if they have a lineup to work with, their BR placement, which means what kind of opponents they'll face on the battlefield, etc. Last but not least, I created a new playlist on the channel which will regroup all the current and future tier lists, making them easier to find. And with all the details out of the way, let's get started. The first vehicle on our list today is the Marder A1. I have a pretty hot take about this one, but I think this light tank is absolute trash. For its job at least. This Marder model specifically doesn't have access to an APDS belt, which means that you are stuck with only 57mm of armor pen on your base belt, and honestly, that's not enough to kill even other light tanks at this BR. Your shells will shatter and you will die. The missiles are also not that damaging and you only have 4 in total. The missile launcher is also a big weak spot, your enemies can just machine gun it and it will lead to an ammo rack. Overall, this light tank is pretty bad unless you use it as an anti-air, and since Germany doesn't have an anti-air at 7.7 at the moment, I would reserve it for this role. I'll put the Marder in D tier. Next, we have the SPZ BMP-1. This one is a much better light tank. Your main gun is powerful enough to deal with even the most armored threats with ease, you have good mobility, as expected of a light tank, you first have access to mouse or stick depending on what device you use, guided missiles which are quite hard to control, but then you unlock semi-automated guided missiles, making your life way easier. The shape of the BMP can also sometimes lead to weird bounces, even though the armor is almost non-existent on this vehicle, so bonus points for that. Finally, remember that you have barely any gun depression in traditional Soviet vehicle fashion. I will put the German BMP in the B tier. Moving on to another Marder model, very similar to the one we ranked earlier, however this one is an improvement. Compared to the A1, the A3 model has access to APDS belt, it has thermal sight, and uses the weird machine gun turret in the back. The rest is similar, but these changes alone make it a lot more viable in combat, and this time you can actually play it as a light tank. For those reasons, the A3 will go in B tier. The last light tank of this line is an optional one, but one that you should consider researching nonetheless, the DF-105. This light tank is a 5-second reload hit launcher with good mobility and decent survivability. This one is a straight A tier. It might not be the easiest tank to play because of how low the velocity of the heat shell and how unpredictable its damage can be against other Cold War vehicles, but it's still worth it in my opinion. Plus, the stock experience is not really a problem since there are no key modules locked behind the grind. Just remember that you might face some tanks plated with ERA, which basically negates heat, so pick your targets accordingly. Moving on to medium tanks. First one is the German M48, which will go straight in C tier, for the sole reason that it starts with freaking APCR, making the stock grind very painful. This M48 is also not very stable and is quite a big target. Add to that you have massive weak spots, like your cupola for example, and you end up with a mediocre medium tank. I also don't like the M48 in general, so yeah. The other medium available to you is the Leopard 1. This tank is all about mobility and firepower. Your gun is good, you have good shells, very good speed, poor armor, and slow turret traverse speed. In other words, with the Leopard 1 you either flank or snipe. The only problem with this tank is that you will quickly face opponents with better tools than you. For example, some tanks at 8.0 already have a stabilizer. Leopard does not. Some have access to laser rangefinders. The Leopard does not. Some have access to thermals. The Leopard does not. With this tank you must be very careful, but still it's an easy beat here. We now arrive in some sort of hybrid line with our first official SPA, the Wiesel 1A4. Let's be real here, this is a light tank, and for me it's A tier. You have access to APDS belt, laser rangefinder and thermals. Combine that to a very low profile and some incredible speed, and you end up with a very sneaky but powerful rat tank. This tank can honestly surprise you if you like to be sneaky. The only problem with this vehicle I can think of is the fact that you don't have a good lineup at 7.3, so it's pretty much a standalone vehicle. Still, you can easily up-tier it to 7.7. I said that it's a standalone vehicle because you should consider skipping this next one. Sitting also at 7.3, we have a much worse light tank, the Luchs A2. This one is a rat but 10 times bigger, and you lose the laser rangefinder in favor of 2 additional crew members, and honestly it's a terrible trade. I had a pretty bad time in it while trying to grind its modules, and I don't see the potential of this vehicle. It will go straight into D tier. We are nearing the end of this rank 5 with the tank destroyer line, starting with the Panzerhaubitze 2000. This tank is just nuts, and it's very surprising that it still sits at only 7.7. You guessed it, it's an A tier vehicle. Laser rangefinder, 5-second reload, has HE and HEVT so it can work as an SPA too, is a bit stabilized, has very good mobility and is quite survivable. Like, what more do you want? If you have room for only one vehicle in your 7.7 lineup, take this one eyes closed. Next up we have the Rakuten Automat. This tank is considered evil by many players, and for good reasons. You shoot high explosive anti-tank shells which have good velocity and reload in half a second. Add to that the fact that you have 2 launchers instead of 1, and with the recent buffs letting you refill your ammunition with an ammo box wherever you want, you end up with a very dangerous tank destroyer. Your mobility also lets you position or reposition quite quickly, and you have a low profile for sneaky plays. However, do not count on your armor to survive, one hit and you'll die instantly. Overall, a great tank destroyer, very nasty, so A tier for the Rakuten Automat. The last tank on our list today is the Rakuten Jagdpanzer II. This tank is your introduction to missiles-only vehicles. You have 2 missile launchers which can be controlled individually and can fire some very powerful ATGMs. You initially have access to manually guided missiles which are difficult to aim. However, this vehicle received a few updates ago a new missile which is semi-guided, making it way easier and enjoyable to play. Now, this tank is optional for research, and as mentioned, the grind can be a bit tough, but you are rewarded in the end with a very hard-hitting tank destroyer with a unique playstyle. I'll put this one in C tier, not because it's bad, but mostly because it's a bit reliant on wide open maps. You need a clear line of sight without annoying obstacles like fences or trees to make it work well. And that is it for this tier list and for Germany. We can now move on to another nation for future tier lists. Once again, I hope this will be useful for some of you. Let me know if you agree or disagree with this ranking, and with that said, I'll see you in the next one.